Good evening, good peoples. Let's jump in here. I sort of have something I've been playing around with, and I wanted to share with you. A lot of you guys ask me, hey, Bruce, what's the best fund that I can own for multiple years? Well, it's always a good idea to own the Spider, the SPY, the S&P 500, those kind of, and usually you ask from the context of an income fund, but be aware that I look at the market historically, I look at cycles, I look at sector rotation. So sometimes I see and understand things that, hey, maybe for the next 5 years, 8 years, we're already a year into the cycle, that, for instance, commodities in the super commodity cycle will outperform the general indexes, the Spider, the QQQ, the Dow, the Russell. And sometimes you have, the Russell outperforming the Qs or even the SPY. And those things can last for months. And those are smaller sector rotations because generally the market is in a bull market or a bear market, but there can be differences. So in the commodity cycle, for instance, you can have energy, uranium, oil, natural gas. Those individual sectors within energy can move within commodity. Other times it's the metals, gold. Gold will lead, then the white metals, the silver, the platinum, the palladium will then move. Um, Other kinds of metals, copper. So there's all these interrelationships between those items. Oil tends to follow gold by about 18 months. Um, and you can look at charts and you can see it. And those are some of the things that I learned in the 2000s when I said, hey, we just went through the dot-com boom and bust cycle. What can be good for the next 10 years? So I started really studying commodities, and I mainly did oil and precious metals, more precious metals than I did oil and energy. And in that process, I learned so much. I learned the sector rotation between gold and then silver. And then I learned it in the white metals. And then I learned that within the gold stocks, the large caps move first, right? The ones that are really producing and are the biggest miners in the world. And I learned about geographic, risk, right? You go into some third world country and they get a new president and he's communist or leftist, and what he doesn't have respect for a North American mining company, a Canadian, a US, a Brit in England, and they come in, and so they just take the mind away. Basically, they say, oh, thanks for doing all that exploration and everything, but we change our mining laws. We're not going to honor your contract that you have written from the former administration. So it's like, oh, okay. Then you sue them in international court. 9 years later, you get 35 cents on the dollar. I just had one of those. It was about 4 years. I owned a small miner. They were down in South America. I won't even name the country at this point. Actually, they were in Africa. I take it back. And but it happens in South America sometimes with administrations. And so they were well on their way with the exotic metals, right? The metals that we really are short, um, in terms of needing critical minerals. And so I owned them, and they had doubled in price, and I plan on holding them for a multitude of years. And all of a sudden, the head of that country came in, and the mining chief said, "Hey, we're taking the mine away." And so the company that I own said, "Hey, we're suing them. This can be a multi-year, but we got the best." It was a Brit lawyer who's done this many times and gotten money settled. And so I held the stock. And I just after 4 years got a dividend that was the majority of the pay that they awarded us. So I basically kept my double, right? I had a double, then lost everything. The stock went down to almost nothing. But then I saw this was going on. So I just wrote it out. Now I got a dividend to pay what and the stock has value because they took some of the money in the award that they didn't distribute to us shareholders, and they got a new mine in a different jurisdiction, and I like their management team and all that. But to make a long story short, there's a lot of things to be aware of, guys, and I try to teach these all the time. So, I always say to you, don't chase yield. Do I find myself wanting to chase yield at times? Absolutely. So what you're looking at on the screen, and some of you guys love my rants because you realize I'm trying to teach you nuggets, and other people say, Bruce, would you just get to the point? I got to put your video on 1.5, 1.7, 2 times, blah, blah. Well, do that. And if you don't like it, don't watch it. Okay. I'm not a fanboy. I don't just come out and praise a company and get invited to their events and do all that stuff. You're going to get real with me. You're going to get 45 years of experience, and I've been there, done that, won, lost, learned, taught myself things when I didn't fully understand them. Okay. So what are the most popular funds right now in the YieldMax? I mean, I talk a lot about YieldMax. I'm not in love with YieldMax. I think they have some good funds, some bad funds, and they were an early market mover. I think they've fallen down in some areas, and I'm sure their management would be the first to tell you that. So everybody, Msty is the rage. I loved Msty. I was in Msty and Coney, and I was getting so much money, and for about 6 months, I just said, how can this stock double? It went from 20 to 40, and I was getting 100% yield, and that went on for 3, 4, 5, 6 months. And then I started to see, and I started to really doing the dailies, see how they're missing so much money. But you can't get high yield and not capture 100%. So, I started banging against the people that said, well, just buy the underlying, you're going to make more money. And I said, yeah, but some people want the income. They're lazy. They want to set it and forget it. Well, I'm here to tell you there's no set it and forget it, guys. I'm going to show you some data again. Excuse me. So here are 6 top funds, okay? Msty, Ulty, Nvidia, Coney, Tesla, and Ymax, and popularity, assets under management, right? We go here. I don't even give you the percentage, but we all know that Misty's like 32 to 35%. It varies, right? That's a huge amount on a fund, okay? What did it do in the last year? Just to fit my example, it's down 39.38. Okay. I don't think MSTR is. Go look at it. Now, the problem with Msty, and I've identified it for you guys, over the last 3 to 4 months, it sucks. Really doing poorly, right? It just can't get out of its own way. Right? So they give you a dividend yield. I'm not sure what that's across, but these are statistically, I just grabbed the top ones. Okay. I didn't pick something. But I'm here to tell you, I think there's a way better fund in MS, sorry, there's a way better fund in YieldMax for the future. Okay. And I don't think it's the best fund around. I'm constantly searching for better ones, but there aren't many in what I'm about to tell you. Okay. So anybody's got any questions? Here's expense ratio. This is in billions. So you can see that these are large funds within the complex. You figure the average YieldMax fund out of like 51 is 400 million. Well, all these are more than double that. And then Misty's more than 10, 11, 12 times that, almost 12 times that. So what is second? Ulti, right? So what do you see from 15 YouTubers out there? A lot of fanboys, YieldMax fanboys, but a lot of YouTubers, right? And why do they talk about them? Because they get the views. Whenever I've done them, retire on Msty, what do I get? The most views I've ever gotten, okay? So I can choose to do that to make the money, or I can choose to do something like I'm trying to do now to actually educate you and teach you. But for the most part, it falls on deaf ears. But I'm never going to stop trying, okay? What I learned. All right. So let's just look. How good is Ulti and Msty over 1 year? Now, I know what a lot of you are going to say. I'm not showing it right here, but trust me, I'm going to get into it. Well, yeah, but they pay really well. Well, are you chasing yield? Right? Now, I give it to Ulti over the last 3 months, they've stabilized their fund. They got down into the mid to high fives and they stabilized. They got into the mid sixes. We're back at 601 on Friday. But in general, it's stabilized. It's paying an 80% yield. So if it goes 80-0 for the next year, that's great. Do I think it's going to do that? No, because right now I'm worried about the markets. I'm always worried about something, guys. I'll do the worrying and teach and show and again, my favorite saying now is I'll report, you decide. Because people are always asking me, hey, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not really allowed or legally can give you financial advice. I can tell you what I'm doing. I can show you what the stats are, and you can decide. But I am going to make this and say if it was me, this is the fund I would own because of these reasons. Is it the best fund? No. But it's a good fund, and I'm going to show you how good it is. It's nowhere near the top 21 funds within YieldMax, but it's a YieldMax fund, and it's as good or better than any of the funds on this list right here. Okay. I call it even with these guys. And where do I think it'll be going forward? Well, there's two areas that I like, right? I think we're in a commodity super cycle. So I think while the spider and the Qs aren't going to be negative for the next 8 years, they're not going to do that well. If you look at them historically, they're probably going to underperform, 9, 10, 12% increases on average. So that's just over the next 5 years. Now, if you're a 20 or 30-year investor, go get yourself, and you want income along the way too, then go put yourself in, an SP, an S&P 500, a QQQ, even a Russell 2000. Move your money around, and you're good to go. You're not going to make huge premium, but you will make some money. But if you want to follow cycles and you want to get in and make the most that somebody's going to do the best, then listen to what I'm going to teach you here. All right, enough rambling on that. But you can see this is the problem with income funds in general. So you got to have a big number over here, right? So Ulti, if they're paying 80% and you're losing 51, you got 29%. 29% is nothing to sneeze at, right? And the same thing here. Maybe Msty for a year's got like 24 or 25%, but that's not what everybody promotes it as. Go watch all the retire-ons, right? They promote it on a lot bigger and better than that, and it's not living up to that, and it may not. Now, I'm bullish on BTC, but lately I've been saying go buy other funds, right? Don't even buy Ybit because to me, Ybit, which is YieldMax, ranks 12th out of 12 BTC funds. Okay, the difference in MSTR and BTC, there is a difference. Okay, even though MSTR is the world's largest holder of BTC, it used to outperform Bitcoin. Now it's underperforming Bitcoin. Now, will that flip back? It could. I can't predict that, but I can show you what's trending. All right. So a couple good funds. Then we go to Nvidia. Nvidia's done fabulous, but I'd worry about it right now with market pullbacks. It's just, it roared up to all-time new highs. Should it do okay going forward? As long as the AI cycle, it has competitive advantage. It's hardware. I don't like it as much as I like Palantir because it's hardware. It's harder to keep generating those margins on hardware, even if you're the leader, than it is in software. So there's just some things that I suddenly look at. But NVIDIA is a hell of a good company, an innovator, a leader. Coin is going to kind of go as BTC, but again, coins run really high. So is it due for a pullback? I think so, because I think the market is pulling back. Tesla is full of optimism I love the robotic. I love the energy management. There's a whole lot of even the autonomous driving, the robo taxi kind of thing. Electric car thing's a little less. And Elon hasn't done, hasn't put himself in a good light either. Been very controversial. I think if he had just had his head down in the company, things would have been better. But it is what it is. He's a brilliant, brilliant guy. Nobody can say that isn't a true statement. And I think ultimately Tesla will do well. YMAX, you guys kind of know my opinion on that. I don't love it, but popularity says it's great, right? So but look at coin. Now I know that's a 1 year trend, right? And now look at coin again. It's back to 7. That's a problem with the income funds. They just can't capture the upside. So there's got to be a constant upside going on that they can get a third or 40% to pay you really good income. The minute that stops, the music stops and it goes sideways to down, look out below. All right. So let's get into what I wanted to talk about here. So I took some names out, and I want you guys to walk through this exercise with me. Okay. I don't know why this. Oh, I know why, but let me fix this. Okay. So the last number of months, total return for the most popular YieldMax income ETFs. I didn't take everyone, guys. I took the top 3. I took the ones that management tells you to buy, the ones that the YouTubers tell you to buy and do all the videos on and the clickbait. And then I compare them to one that I think you ought to be in. But I'm still looking for better ones. It's sort of one of the only ones. So therefore, I'm going to mention it here. So then I went through and I ranked them on 1 month total return, 3 month total return, 6 month total return, and 9 months total return. I've already shown you the 1 year. Well, the 1 year didn't really give you total return. It told you yield and then it told you decline. But I can do that. It's not going to change everything. And then I rank these funds. So when I uncover the names, I want you to start guessing. Okay, so on 1 month stats, what do you think about Msty and Ulty and Ymax in here? What do you think their rankings are? And every time I gave you a point. If you were first place, I gave you 1 point. So I added everybody across the 4 time periods. And every one of the funds that I measured, my secret one, and then the 3, the Ymax, the Ulty, and the Msty. You win if your total return is higher or less of a loss. So up here, the winner, now I put something else in here. Ignore this one. And then I put a couple more. I wanted to show you a category. But every time I'm looking at the 3 most popular YieldMax funds, Ulti, Ymax, and Msty. And then I'm comparing my secret YieldMax fund against those, and then a couple in the category that I like. Okay. And what did everybody get? Everybody got 10 points. Well, the low point wins. If you were first in all 4 categories, you got 4 points. My fund and all 3 of the popular funds all got 10 points. So they all tied. So what I'm saying is you don't even know what's good. You just chase yield. Okay. So here we go. Let's jump in here. Let's take a look at who might have been fourth. Msty for the loss. So Msty was 4 out of these 4 funds in total return. One of the funds had 2.87, one had a minus 0.52, one had minus 6.84 over the last 30 days. Now, this is including yield, guys. This is including in distribution, okay? You recognize Msty there with $1.18, right? Not good. Let's see who won this. It's a popular fund. I bought some. Bought some more, I should say. Ulty for the win in 1 month. What did I say about Ulty? Ulty's been doing pretty well the last 3 months. It's stabilized, paying a good yield. But what if you're in Ulty longer? What's the future for Ulty? Okay. Don't become a fanboy and don't think it's the best thing in the world. Watch it. These are not set it and forget it, guys. They are not. All right. Who was number 2? Ymax, number 2. So where's the secret fund? Let's take a look, guys. If you know me, you could probably guess this. GDXY. I say it for obvious reasons because we're in a commodity super cycle. First, we had the metal itself move. We had gold double. And the miners didn't wake up till 4 months ago. They didn't even really start moving. Metal was going crazy. And then we all, people that know that sector said, wait till the earnings in this 3,000 plus gold comes out. And the quarter before they were 2,400. And then they get 2 quarters of 3,300. Now we're getting a quarter on the second quarter reports on Newmont. You know how I've been making money on Newmont? I don't buy the stock. I sell puts like crazy. And just capture that premium and go buy Ulti with it or something, or buy some more mining juniors because those are the ones that are going to really blow up. So the metal moves, then the miners typically perform 3 to 4 times better. And we're kind of stopped moving on the big cap. So GDX, which is what GDXY is written on, is the large caps. Those guys are going to move. But if gold triples, they're going to go up 2 to 3 times, 6 to 9 times. But if gold only doubles, they're going to go up, 2 times, 3 times. So you want to be in the miners, but even with it, and so later I'm going to show you GDX on here. So far in 1 month, you got a fund. Now let's go back over to our Where does GDX rank? 23, right? Whoops, that's not what I want to move the whole row. I just didn't want to show you because all that. Down the least, right? 1 year change. Good expense ratio, not a 130, which will go to 140 before long. They gave us a little leeway on the extra 0.1. But again, if I've got an outstanding fund, whether it's 1% or 1.2, and people go, oh well, FCHD is 0.25, right? I mean, these are 4 times expensive. Well, what are you getting? If you're getting high income, it's still a small consolence, guys, of what you're doing. So I don't subscribe to that. It's just where I got my stats off the internet. They had it. I didn't bother to delete the column. I could have. Okay. But it goes down the least, right? It's not going to pay the most. I wish it did. I'd be singing the praises. But again, if it was an 80 or 90% yielder, it'd be in the YouTube's playbook, right? Because what do? They love headlines and they love to promote yield chasing. Okay. Especially if you're a fanboy, you got to help where you can help so that you get rewarded instead of just helping people. Although some do, look, it's not everybody. I'm embellishing, but there is a certain air of that. You know how much I see the same video done over and over and over again because they just look at what somebody's done and said, "Oh, I need that in my title. I'll spin the data a little different." Everybody copies everybody to some degree in that sense. I think it's harder though if you do something like I do. right? I am starting to see comparisons of funds. I'm seeing guys that weren't doing it before, YieldMax versus Roundhill, and that's great. I'm glad people are educating. If you're educating, more power to you. Okay, so again, my problem is it's an income fund. I can do better on the underlying. You maybe can't, right? Or you need income, right? That's the problem with this sector alone. If I hadn't started in income, I probably would be a growth guy. I'd tell you about the hot AI stocks I like, and I'd talk to you about all the precious metals and energy and all the commodity super cycle. And all I would do is have a membership, buy this. This is what I'm buying now. I'm selling this. I'm looking for this. And I'd have that. But I didn't start that way. And I have a sense of loyalty. And I know that some people really need this income. So that's why I focus on what I focus on. All right. So let's continue back here. So let's just uncover these so you'll see what I'm talking about. Oops, I didn't really uncover this guy. Okay. What is this? This is, I believe it's Rex shares IAUI. Okay. It's on metals. Here's one of the problems you're going to find. I'll bring over another spreadsheet in a minute. There are a number of gold and silver oriented physical metal trusts, ETFs, and even and some of them generate decent income and they sell options on the underlying metals. So if it's on silver, they're out there in SLV and they're writing options. And if they're in gold, they're typically in GLD and they're writing options. Okay. My issue with that, again, I'm a perfectionist when it comes down to it. I know that sector cold. So I say to myself, gold's going to do well, but now that the miners have woken up, okay, I can do better in the miners. Where is the majority of my wealth today? It's in physical gold and silver. That doesn't excite a lot of people. It's boring as hell, but I sleep well. And if gold does what I think it's going to do, I'm going to be very wealthy by the time this cycle is done. So starts with physical, and then if you can get income in physical, it's okay. But if you can get it on the stocks, it's better. But here's the problem. GDX runs for a while, and it's going to go another 3x up, I suspect 4x up. Again, depends on how high these metals, right? There's all, and I've got a video coming on that, on what I think a reset could do to gold. Normally, I'd say my target is 7,500 to 9,000 on gold in 5 years. But if we do a reset, it could almost instantly go to 15,000 and pull silver up to 130, 150, 180. If that happens, this sector will go absolutely nuts. But that's the topic for a whole nother video that I'm working on. It's going to take another day or two. So check out this fund. The problem is it's got a 1 month track record, guys. But look, it's right up there with Ulti. Okay, it didn't yield what Ulti did, but look at everybody else went down. GDXY only went down 3%. So they were the smallest NAV loss of all the YieldMax funds. But this gold, this could be on gold itself. I think it's on the miners. Again, I researched all this and then I moved my sheets around so I don't remember. Actually, let me go here. Neos, guys, see? I made a note in another sheet that I'm actually not using. So somebody would put that in the comments. It's a Neos fund. And I apologize, Neos, for saying it might be Rex. Okay, that still didn't tell me what it's based on, but I believe it's on the metal. I hope it gets down to the miners because that's where we want to be, people. Let me see sometimes if I'm looking on my other screen to see if I can find out what their holdings are, then I know. That's never easy. Holdings, here we go. Yep, on GLD. It's playing the metals, writing options. Okay. Not bad, but again, there's more money to be made in the GDX type approach. But guys, there's three segments in the GDX world. There's a GDXJ that's the juniors, and the juniors now are outperforming the majors in GDX. But there is no income fund that I know of. There's a 2X and all that, and even the regular fund pays a small annual distribution. It can be 2 to 6%, but it's annual. Nobody that needs income is going to sit around on that. That's just a positive happenstance that potentially happens. Whereas this guy's a monthly payer from Neos. All right, so let's move on now. Now I added two more in here that I know about that I think add some value, and that is GLDI and SLVO. Let's see, did I GLDI, UBS? So I'm sure that SLVO is the same. One is silver and one is gold. Okay. So what are you getting with those guys? Well, up here, well, I take it back. I didn't have them up here. So in the 3-month scenario, GDX did good. Msty did horrible. So they're hanging in their 3 and 4. Well, guess what these guys do in the 6 and 9 months? They go to the lead. They start playing 1 and 2, right? Because Ulty and Ymax can't hang. That's why everybody ends with 10 points. But I wanted to bring these guys into the equation so that you see. But again, they're metals focused, not metals miners focused, which is where the growth is that could end up being the income. Now, I suspect when we get fully running, we're at 4,500 goal and GDX decides to, run 80% in 3 months, that'll jack up the IV and those payments will get big and all that. But the main thing of bringing GDXY to you, and I said it since day one at launch, it just the miners didn't wake up for quite a while, even though gold was moving. Now they're awake, okay? And they're volatile, guys. They're just like these AI stocks. They're just like the high flyers. They're volatile. They go up. I had one of my miners, one of my smaller miners, go up 24.98. And I had a bunch at 15, 17, 11. I own about 30, 35 mining stocks in my portfolio. And I talk about that. If you want to look at my playlist, go out and I tell you what miners you should be buying, what ones are going to get you rich in the next 3 to 5 years with 20x potentials. So that stuff's all out there. Is it popular? No, because you guys are chasing yield. You know how many times I tell you, you should be chasing how you can make a lot of money. Okay, I did it. I know it. Okay, so I wanted to show them. Here's 3 months. Okay, this looks good. Ulti looks great over 3 months. Number one, right? Number one there. It doesn't look so good when it goes to 6 months. Okay. And I don't know how it's going to be going forward. If the market turns down, it's going to be ugly. Ulti's not going to do so well. Those IVs are going to shrink, right? And their payout's going to shrink, and the fund's going to have NAV decline. But I'm not saying that's going to happen because I don't know. But watch my video about where are we going. Could. And I know most of you say, yeah, we've done that. I love the people that just say, as if everything just repeats exactly and you predict it. They go, oh, somebody in the comment, yeah, September we went down, April we went down, the same thing. So what they're saying is ignore the drops, buy the drops, because every time you drop, we're going to go back up. Well, that's not always true, guys. How do you know when it's going to drop 15% or 50%? You don't. So I'm not saying somebody that's 20-year, 30-year investment and you own the S&P 500 and the S&P 500 goes down 50, you better believe, keep DCAing in that guy. You're in for the long term. But you get in these highly leveraged in these income funds, and that NAV erosion can be brutal, guys. Ulti can be $2 before you know it. Well, at $2, can it pay you 11 cents? I don't think so a week. Not going to happen. And I'm not saying it's going there, but I'm saying it could. Okay. And they all can, but at least I know on GDXY, these miners are going to do nothing in time but go up for 3 years, 4 years, right? So that's what I'm telling you about a sector in a commodity super cycle. I don't know in YMAX. I mean, they keep picking hot stocks, Roblox, right? But if the market turns is not so good, right? Tesla is a perfect example of that. These stocks that double and triple can have a 50% retracement. Well, think about that. What if it was a $100 stock and it tripled and went to 300? So now you're buying it at 250, 270, 280 equivalent of where it is, but you're buying the income fund and it goes to 150. Guess what your income fund does? It goes down 95% the same. And then all of a sudden your yield and your payments are nowhere near what they used to be. Guys ask that question all the time. But do I think they're all going to go to zero? No. Are they all going to have NAV erosion? Yeah. The only way they can't do that is if they steadily motor up 30 or 40% all the time. And that's not feasible. All right. So you got a lot. Let's take the 6 month because I was talking about what changes. Let's take a look at that. So look at GDXY, right? The 6 months, that's about the time that they've woken up, especially the last 4 or 5. So not fully 6, but this didn't capture it as much as this did. But hey, we all know Msty has been a goat. So when you go 6 months, right, that's not even a fabulous Msty, but people will take it. That's more reminiscent. But you got the 23rd ranked stock in OM doing what the #1 stock in OM pretty much did 25 of the 28. That's pretty damn good. And that why? Because they can pay $11 to $4 and their yield can be more than double. But look at their NAV, down 2%, down 33%, from 2685 to 1787. So that's your issue, guys. How about YMAX, right? That's the retire on YMAX. That's safety. That's diversity. 6 months is not much more than a T-bill. I don't see it that way. Now, if I could pick funds, I can do a lot better than I can make my own YMAX, right? Or I can just go buy Roundhill. They pay me every week and they do a better job. Ulti, even 6 months, not bad, but not as good as GDXY and not as good as Msty. Oh, these should be reversed, guys. I got a fourth. That should be. I don't think that changes the points, but it could. Yeah, it might make yep, it made an 11 and a 9. Okay. So Ulti wins, guys, but by a point. Okay. And YMAX loses. So are you better in GDXY or are you better in YMAX? So Msty and GDXY are even over the last 9 months. So let's finish looking at them. 24, 28. How do these funds do? Now, I just showed you this. I only put it in one of these. It's nothing because it hasn't performed well, but it's up 34%. Yeah, I know that. I own some of the miners in it. And sometimes I buy a 2X. Sometimes I buy a 3X, GDXU, GDXDU, I believe. Because when I sense it's running, and it'll have a periods of time that it does that over the next 3 to 5 years, then that's where I want to be. I can forsake the income for just a capital gain. All right, guys. So that's where I'm going. That's my secret thing to tell you. I wish there were a lot more funds. I mean, there are some. There's one out there called Shiny that's 3X again. It's on GLD on the physical gold. But there aren't enough. There are a lot of smaller miner, let me give you names of them. There's something called SIL, right? I think it's Amplify even. But these don't. They're not income funds. So you got SIL, you got SILJ for the juniors, you got GDX. You guys know about that for the majors. That's what GDX is on. You got GDXJ for juniors. I'm just going off memory, guys. I traded this, bought these things so long and so much. I know it. And then you have JNUG, which is a 2x on the juniors, and you have Nugget, which is a 2x. Again, no real income, guys. You have Nugget, which is a 2x on GDX. JNUG is a 2x on GDXJ. And I'm missing one or two. There's a few more. But those aren't income, so I'm not talking them as up as much. And as I see sector rotation in the miners, I move around a little bit. And then I mentioned, I believe it's GDXU, which is a 3x really on GDX. Use that cautiously, guys. These things have decay and all that. You don't want to buy a 2x and hold it for 9 months. So that's what I got for you. Let me finish with a 9-month scenario. And Msty continues, right? 27 to 19. But GDX is no slouch. Second place, first and second, right? So anybody that says, hey, Msty is a GOAT. Msty's not a recent GOAT, right? 3 months now, almost 4 months, is not doing very well. Okay. To me, over 9 months, these are pathetic. Look at Ulty. Yeah, you talk up that yield, baby. But how about that NAV? That's only 9 months. So that's all I'm saying, guys, is that, and look at these, very respectable, because they don't really change a lot but again, and they're even on the metals. I don't even buy them because I own so much of the metal, right? I'm getting the price appreciation. All right, guys, that's what I got. That's the whole thing talking about, what surprises you sometimes. I'm always looking for angles, always studying this stuff. And, I have another list I can show you guys, but honestly, remember I mentioned these. This is one of mine where I have about 130 income oriented funds of all kinds. And I thought I did a sort on just precious metals and gold and silver, but I ended up with the VIX and I ended up with Amazon not getting them out. But granted, it's got a fund called BAR. But again, these are almost, there's a inverse, right? Gold inverse from Rex called Dull. Spiders, the GLD. I showed you GLDY. Simplify's got Y gold. So, but again, these look at the 3-month yield and the 6-month yield. They're puny. They pay quarterly. That's not what you high income yield guys are looking for. There's GDX itself. Now I buy this one. I own this one currently, AGQ. They say it's 2x. It acts more like a 1.5x on physical silver. Then you have SLV. But again, guys, not income oriented, right? There's a lot. There's the SLVO I talked about, UBS. So I just wanted to show you this is that 130 funds broken, and I have it, by category and everything. I search that from time to time. All right, guys, I'm going to let you go. This has been long enough. It's your Sunday evening. Hope you had a great weekend and get ready. I'm sure a lot of you have a little anxiety. Nobody likes it when the market, there's a little bit of fear. I haven't even looked. I need to go out and see what the metals are doing, what the VIXs are doing, et cetera, et cetera. All right, guys, this is Bruce with Targeted Wealth Creation. I'm not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice. Have a great one. Bye for now.